First question is, what do I tell my kids, in parentheses sons, when it comes to addressing the police?
One of the things you should be telling your kids is the reason why we are experiencing what we're experiencing. You know, a lot of people want to jump to the issue of police brutality and police killing blacks, but in order to understand the problem, you have to go to the root of it. And I think that's the main issue in America. We really don't want to go to the root of it. Somebody asked me today, a pastor friend asked me today, well, what is the root of the problem as far as you see it? I said, as far as I see it, America is dealing with what I call the compound interest of injustice. Amen. What do you mean, Pastor? What's compound interest? We have to go back to slavery. And I know we don't want to because there's so many issues surrounding that subject. There is the denial. There is the push for us to forget. But we cannot forget what we have not dealt with. And when I say we, I mean America as a whole. But Pastor, how does that tie into what we're seeing today? Well, you have to understand that from an African-American culture, there are many in the African-American community that are tired, frustrated, aggravated, and just sick of the mistreatment of a race of people systemically just because of the color of their skin. This didn't start this week. This goes all the way back to the days of slavery, to the days of Jim Crow. It even goes back to what happened after slavery was supposedly abolished and the mistreatment of people who were supposed to be free. One of the things that I'm going to push tonight in terms of a solution, and I'll talk about it again on the end, I believe that there are two things that America needs to do. One is legislation, one is reparations. And I know that's not a popular thing to say in 2016, but I'm ready for the argument. Why would you say reparations? Well, when you understand that America has already paid reparations. Who do they pay reparations to? And some of you are going to love Googling this tonight. America paid reparations to slave owners when slavery was abolished. Go Google it. They actually paid cash money to slave owners for their loss of slaves. Google it tonight. You're going to love finding that on the internet. In other words, they wrote a check to slave owners to compensate them for the loss of their free labor force. Now, how do you compensate the slave owner, but you don't compensate the slave for 400 years of labor? And I'm simply trying to paint a picture so that all of us understand the anger and the frustration that we see in America. Now, many of us, because we have Christ, we have found a way, and only through Christ do we find this way to calibrate and recalibrate every single day. For were it not for Christ, many of us would be just as angry and just as vicious and just as violent because we would not have something to alleviate. Do I have a church in here tonight? Something to alleviate the frustration that we have experienced. And then some say, well, you haven't experienced. You were born in 68 and you were born in a great era. But at the same time, you have to understand that even though many of us may have never picked cotton, we're still picking up the pieces. What do you mean? Racism is real. What do you mean, Pastor? Not only is racism real when you talk about racism in terms of blacks and whites and blacks, but racism is real between blacks and blacks. We got to deal with the whole thing tonight, church. So part of the other side of the frustration is we've got issues within our issues in terms of how we function with each other. So the thing you got to tell your kids is we got to go ahead and just really deal with American history. And we got to deal with the ugly parts if we're ever going to make this thing pretty somewhere down the road. So when you're telling your kids what's going on, make sure they understand the historical ramifications of how we got here. Make sure they understand that what they're looking at on television is definitely a problem. And it's a problem that we cannot respond to in fear. Somebody say, don't respond in fear. Fear is going to get you killed. Say that again, Pastor. Okay, fear is going to get you killed. Why? Because the police are afraid. People are afraid. And when you walk in fear, the devil walks in and he just dominates that entire situation. So no matter what happens in America, we cannot be afraid because God says, I haven't given you the spirit of fear. So one of the things you tell your children is do not fear the police. Second thing you tell them is to respect the police. Under no circumstances are we right in disrespecting the police establishment based on those that are doing things that are wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Amen, somebody? So you can't feel justified because what you do is you compound the problem when you decide you're going to resist the police establishment. They can't tell you nothing. You don't have to do anything they tell you to do. You're setting yourself up for a major, major headache. Amen. And you may be putting yourself in an early grave. So you tell them to respect the police. You tell them to do what is necessary so that they can live. This whole issue is about life. And I know we get aggravated and frustrated, but you can't stand your ground in the streets. Amen, somebody? You can't stand your ground against a badge and a gun and a system that is already proven it's more likely to back the badge than it is the citizen. Now, you guys have heard me say this over and over again, and I will repeat it tonight. In this day and age, more than ever, we must learn to play chess and stop playing checkers. And I see a lot of people playing checkers, and I really don't have a lot of patience for people who play checkers because you're not thinking. We're living in a thinking man's game. In other words, you got to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of what you're dealing with, and you cannot have a devotion to your emotions. I'm trying to help somebody. As an African-American male, when I walk out of my house, I cannot walk out of my house in my feelings. If I do, I'm in trouble. If I do, I can't lead. If I do, I'm going to be saying things that are going to cause people to riot. That's why those of us who are leaders, and this is the other part of the problem, there are a lot of folks that are trying to talk about what's going on in America that quite frankly need to shut up. Both black and white. Yeah, both black and white, because everybody's not qualified or everybody's not disciplined or mature enough to look at chaos and speak a balanced version of truth. Because if you're black, if you're not careful, you will take the black perspective. If you're white, you're not careful, you'll take the white perspective. No, truth. The Bible said the truth will make us free. So it takes a great discipline to see all the chaos and say, okay, here's a fair and balanced analysis of what we're dealing with. I still see wrong moves being made on both sides. I'm not going to win a lot of friends tonight. No, Pastor, no, the wrong is, there's wrong on both sides. But oftentimes, instead of pointing out what's wrong, we need to figure out what we need to do to make things right. Because anybody can point out what's wrong. Amen, somebody? The most important thing, and whoever wrote that question, I have major respect for you, because you would be surprised how many parents are not having conversations with their children, which to me is not wise. I won't insult your intelligence, but if you have children tonight of any age that are living in your home, there should be constant discussions about what's going on. Because you don't want them to get their cues from school or from their friends or not even from the media. You need to be the one that's speaking wisdom into their lives. If not, they're going to get caught up just like a bunch of other people. Somebody say amen. Great question. I hope y'all will take a cue from his question and have a conversation tonight. Talk about what we're talking about. Ask your children, how do you feel about what you see? How are you interpreting what you see? How do you feel about the police? Get their feelings, because you kind of need to know where they're heading mentally so you can kind of guide them spiritually. Amen. Well, that's an interesting question, because we are taking action, but what I'm seeing typically tends to be the wrong actions. I don't know if you watched what happened last night in North Carolina, but I'm going to jump to something that I think is important, that I see as a problem, and I don't really hear a lot of people addressing it. Protesting and peaceful protesting is your right in this country. But what we have is a generation who is trying to be a part of a peaceful protest movement, and I use those quotations, but they have not studied the template of the peaceful protest that was productive before our time. Okay, trust me, I know where I'm going. I've spent a lot of hours on this. What you see is people who want to be a part of a movement, and that's the problem with hashtags. Everybody can grab a hashtag, but some folks don't understand what they hashtagging. So when you have a peaceful protesting movement, when you look at the movement of the past, these people had an agenda, they had demands, but the main thing they had training. We saw the same thing in Ferguson. We've got people hitting the streets, shouting, no justice, no peace. And it always starts out peaceful. But somewhere along the way, it ends up looking like a hot mess. That's the only way I can explain it. Well, how's that happening, Pastor? Well, if you go back to the 60s when they had peaceful protests, they literally went through training incidents. They set up counters so they could practice sitting at a lunch counter, and they had their white counterparts who were a part of the peaceful movement help them go through the training, so they would have black people sit at a counter and have black people have coffee and a drink, or have black people have soda poured on them. They would cuss them. They would call them the N-word. Why? Because they wanted them to experience before, come on somebody, they wanted them to experience before the reality what could happen when you hit the streets. Are y'all hearing me? So now we have a generation that wants to march, but they don't have the proper protocol for what a productive march looks like, which inherently creates a problem, because when the conversation turns to those who are looting, then the conversation is taken away from the real issues that we need to be talking about. CNN spent 24 hours talking about the foolishness because the protesters who did not know how to do a proper protest pulled all the attention away from the real issues. Number two, you have to understand that a lot of these people who are screaming Black Lives Matter, we need to get a very clear understanding about Black Lives Matter. First of all, I want to say from this platform that everybody has to understand that Black Lives Matter does not mean that white lives don't. Let's clear some stuff up here. If we're going to be productive tonight, let's be really clear, because again, that's another divisive mechanism. When somebody says Black Lives Matters, then somebody says, well, all lives matter. Well, all lives might matter, but all lives don't matter equally. If they did, we'd all be dying equally. So I don't argue that all lives matter, all lives do matter, but you cannot take offense to somebody saying Black Lives Matter, because the original initiative of Black Lives Matters was to remind the world that there is an issue when it comes to black lives, because all lives are not being treated properly. Come on, somebody say amen. So that's a divisive conversation right there, because when you say Black Lives Matter, people put you in a whole nother category. Understand this, though, there are also some people who are protesting under the flag of Black Lives Matter, and they are really not a part of the Black Lives Matter movement. There's some black folks that are hollering Black Lives Matter, and they don't give a care about black lives. So everybody hollering Black Lives Matter is really not about black lives, because if you're about Black Lives Matter, why are you looting? I'm not going to be popular. Thank you, Herman. If it's about Black Lives Matter, why are you attacking the police? It's quiet in here tonight. If it's about Black Lives Matter, why are you breaking the law? Why are you protesting to be mad because the police broke the law? So understand that everybody screaming Black Lives Matter ain't about that life. Amen, somebody? Which also creates a problem, because you've always got that group of people who make a positive movement look like a bad thing. Does that make sense? So blacks and whites have got to come together, and we all should be saying Black Lives Matter. Again, it doesn't mean white lives don't, but it does mean that we recognize we have a problem in this country, and if we don't solve it, we are going to only continue to go in this circle, because we've been here before. Somebody say we've been here before. Don't this feel just like Ferguson? And if we don't do anything different, it'll come back again. Well, here's the how. Are y'all ready for the how? Here's the how. Let me give you some viable solutions. And I believe this is going to help us all tonight. Number one, we need national leaders who protesters will follow and listen to. There is no successful protest without a predominant leader who is in control and at the forefront of the movement. When you look at Dr. Martin Luther King, he's truly a perfect ideal of what it takes to lead a movement because he put himself out front. And some people thought he put himself out front to be seen. He put himself out front to be known. No, those protesters need someone to lead them so that when emotions get out of hand, they've got somebody that says, remember our purpose. Remember why we are marching. Yes, the dogs are going to be sicked on you today. Yes, they're going to turn the water hoses on you today. But remember why we're here, because the minute you lose it, we all lose. See, everybody ain't cut out for this protesting stuff. Everybody ain't cut out for this peaceful protest because you got to have a whole different level of maturity. And here's the problem. Back in their day, the peaceful protest worked because, and I want to get to my notes. Somebody say, why did peaceful protesting work? Here's something that I've gathered. The objective of peaceful protests back in the day, number one, was to showcase the civility of the American citizens who were disenfranchised. Grasp that. If you don't grasp anything else, grasp that. It had a functional purpose. The agenda was not to bust out windows. It was not to be on CNN. It was not to be seen. Come on, somebody. The agenda, and it was a masterful plot, really, to showcase the civility of the American citizens who were disenfranchised, because what America was doing at that time, and still doing now, was to try to paint those that were disenfranchised as animals and uncivil people, which would allow America to justify the treatment of these. Do I have anybody hear me tonight? If I can show that you're an animal, if I can show that you're uncontrollable, if I can show that you're a menace to society, then I'm able to justify the way that I treat you. So our predecessors had enough sense to know that what we will do is we will show the world we are not what they are portraying us to be. Which is why the peaceful movement was one of the most powerful movements, because the rest of the world got to see us in a positive light. Number two, it was designed to demonstrate the barbaric behavior of America towards its own citizens. Again, the genius of the marches of the 60s are phenomenal, and I've never heard anybody really articulate the genius behind the marches of the 60s, because it was a setup to show America how barbaric this country really was. What they did in the 60s was they used their own media against them. They used their own media against them and caused them to project negative images of America to the entire world. Go study your history. So now China and Japan and Russia and all the other countries around the world are looking at America in a different light. So, Pastor, why does that matter? Number three is the reason why it matters. To force America to change its policies through political peer pressure. Genius. Somebody say genius. Okay, understand this. The political pressure comes when other countries are asked to look at your country as the leading country, but you are exhibiting behavior that is not worthy of you to be called a leader. It creates a political pressure for you to change your policies. I wish I had a church in here. Even though you don't want to, you don't want to lose your status in the world. You do know all the changes that were facilitated during the 60s really had very little to do with black people. It also had very little to do with America's love for black people. It also had very little to do with America's wantingness to do what was right by black people. Well, why were any of those changes made? Political peer pressure. And if we don't get smart, you can march all day. But until you understand this, then you're just marching. That's why pastors getting a little tired of folks marching with no agenda, no purpose, no plan, no demand. We just want to be on Channel 13 News at 6. It's quiet now. And everybody wants to lead, but everybody doesn't know how to lead. This isn't popular. Is anybody getting this? And I want to leave this on the screen because somebody needs to write this down. Somebody needs to take this to North Carolina. Somebody should have took this to Ferguson and said, okay, all of us who are going to march, let's have a meeting. Let's understand how these things have worked in the past. Now, here's what you need to understand. When we act a fool, like we saw last night in North Carolina, like we saw in Ferguson, when we, the protesters, the disenfranchised, the ones who are begging for change, when we act a fool, we actually wind up being the ones that are projected. Somebody's going to understand it tonight. With the negative, barbaric behavior. Last night we looked barbaric. Both black and white folks. I saw just a minute white folk busting out windows as black folks. I'm like, what in the world is going on? What do you expect to change after you do that? Because we have a generation who's trying to duplicate what they saw somebody else do, but they aren't students of the process. We need more than a rally cry. We need an agenda that makes sense, one that we can present to the government and say, this is what needs to be changed, and we're going to peacefully protest until change is seen. And we're not going to be the ones seen acting in a barbaric manner. We're going to keep marching until you show your true colors. See, this generation ain't figured it out. You keep marching peacefully, and after a while, they get tired of your peacefulness. After a while, they can't take it anymore, and then their true colors come out, and then CNN is right there. See, America, this is why folks are marching. Come on, give God praise if you got this. I'm going to leave that on the screen because I think that's important. So number one, somebody said we need national leaders who protesters will follow and listen to. So this is my other issue with this generation who is trying to be a part of a movement. This is the same generation in Ferguson that disrespected publicly and blatantly people like Jesse Jackson. I saw ignorance in the most vicious and vile way when Jesse Jackson went to Ferguson to try to help, to try to lead, and he was told, get out of here, old man. We don't need you. You can't help us. And I thought to myself, what a blatant picture of ignorance personified. Because even if you don't agree with everything Jesse stands for, you must respect the fact that Jesse was there in the beginning before your little snotty nose behind was even born. How dare you disrespect somebody that has walked the walk and talked the talk? And we don't have to agree with everything, but that man deserves respect and could have helped them in Ferguson. But no, you got this new generation who's chomping at the bit to lead and don't know how to be a leader. It's quiet now. Number two, we need legislation. What do you mean, Pastor? We need legislation. You can march all day, but if the laws on the books don't change, because the laws is what's really causing us problems. So here's what I've said earlier, and I'll say it again. I shared it with a pastor friend of mine that called looking for some guidance. I said the people, watch this now, the people with power have to put pressure on the people that make policy. Somebody better hear me. Somebody better hear me. Who can put pressure on the policymakers to say, if you don't change, we won't re-elect you. It's quiet now. Okay, y'all not feeling me. You say you wanted solutions, right? Okay, see, this is the problem I have with church folks. All you want to do is pray. And I'm so sick of some of y'all. I love you, but I'm so sick. Pastor, we just need to pray. Whew, help me, Lord, not to say anything ugly right now. We just need to come together and pray. We've been praying, haven't we? I'm not against praying, but you have to do more than pray, Christians. Okay, some of y'all looking real crazy tonight. Just keep praying. Well, that's what the Bible says. My people come together. Ooh, call by my name, pray. He'll do this. Okay. Keep praying and see what happens. You got to make some decisions. And you got to work, watch this, you got to work within the system that's working against you. See, you want to get outside the system. Folks, the law and the government are going to be here. And until you, how do I say this? Until you are smart enough to infiltrate it, you'll never be able to change it. Okay, somebody going to hear me tonight. This means if we're going to really change the system, folks got to start thinking about getting into politics. Okay, see, nobody wants to hear this. I know you just want to march and you just want to pray. Let me say that again because I want it to be recorded. You just want to march and you just want to pray. No, you got to change the way you're thinking. If policing is an issue, then check this out. More of us got to start considering becoming policemen. That means you just can't talk about bad police. You got to infiltrate the system to become one of the solutions within the system, so that when you see bad police, you report bad police, because now you're one of the good guys. From the inside out, change happens. Okay, I'm trying to help you. Now, Pastor, I just want to pray. Then folks going to keep dying. See, this is the sacrifice that we have to make. King made the sacrifice. Jackson made the sacrifice. Ralph Abernathy made sacrifices. Why? Because they understood, if I don't get in the system, and a lot of these guys became congressmen, became senators. They started working with Congress. Why? Because they understood, I can't change it on the outside looking in. I believe in the Trojan horse strategy. And I wish the church would really understand what that meant. What do you mean, Pastor? You got to get inside this thing. And you got to get in there and smile and put your suit on. And you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. But at the same time, you have an agenda, which is to right every wrong that you can with the power that's been invested in you. Come on, somebody. But you're too busy playing checkers. That's why you can't play chess. They make a move, you make a move. They make a jump, you make a jump. No, you got to be 4 steps ahead. Number 3, we need national lethal force guidelines. What does that mean? I would like to submit a bill called Tasers First. What'd you say, Pastor? I said tasers first. What do you mean? When they pull up on the scene, it should be national standard. Before you pull a gun, pull your taser. Because once you pull a gun, then we're in a lethal situation. Now, we have wisdom enough to put certain exemptions. If someone has a weapon and the weapon is pointed at you, then it's understandable that you may have to use lethal force to bring that subject down. Or if that person has a weapon and they are charging you, then it is reasonable to understand that you have to pull your lethal force weapon, maybe, possibly, to stop that individual. But it's not understandable how you can shoot somebody with their hands up, no gun, nowhere to be found, because you thought you was in danger. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. You thought you was in danger? Child, please. You got the wrong job. You should have got a job at McDonald's, so you could feel safe making that Big Mac. Hello, somebody. So I think we need to understand that if we don't make it something that's in legislation, that when you pull that weapon, you understand that you have crossed a line, that there are consequences and repercussions if you pull the trigger and somebody dies. That's the only thing I'm saying. Somebody say amen to that. Number 4, please embrace this. Number 4, here's a national solution. We need to comply with police. I know I won't get me a clap there. You know why? Because the argument is, well, Pastor, even when we do comply, we still wind up dead. And I agree there are those incidences, but statistics have proven that the likelihood of survival grossly increases when you comply, and grossly decreases when you don't comply. Yes, there are incidents where people have complied and they still died, and those officers should be held to the extreme of the law. But I'm telling you again, we're trying to learn how to play chess and not play checkers. So when I get pulled over, it's yes, sir, officer. Yes, sir. Even though I'm 100% innocent and I'm burning on the inside. Yes, sir, officer. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here's my ID. Yes, sir. Here's my license. And I'm thinking, just as soon as this is over, woo, you gonna get it. It's quiet now. But if you're not smart, you'll be venting in real time, and you can't win that battle. How many of these do we have to see before we get smart in the streets? That's the only thing. And I know some of y'all Billy bad, and you just, I ain't gonna take it, Pastor. I'm not the one. Okay, all right, I'll be at your funeral. Amen, somebody? I'll be at your funeral. So comply, even if you're 100% innocent, because the goal is to live to tell your story. And yes, there are those cases when people comply and they still end up with a negative experience, some even death. My word is always to tell you to comply. Your percentages are far greater of surviving an incident if you comply. Amen, somebody? I know some people say that's a sellout move, Pastor. I'm just trying to keep you alive, though. That's all. Number 5, become more politically involved and make sure you vote in the elections, especially the local elections. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, people. Oh, Pastor, our vote don't count. Father, help me not say anything insulting right now. Voting don't matter. It's all rigged. If it was rigged, Barack Obama would have never been elected president. If your vote didn't count, that black man had never been in the White House for 2 terms. So come on, somebody. Ain't nowhere in the world he got a second. Do y'all hear me tonight? So voting is a reality. It does work. The system is flawed, of course, but you need to be actively involved, especially in the local branch of government, because that's where you live. You need to be concerned about Warner Robins. So when these elections come up locally, you need to know who's running, what do they believe, what do they stand for, what is their track record before they ran for office. Because people get real political when they run for office. I ain't seen you in the hood before. That's why they don't like me, boy. I ain't seen you in the hood before. And all of a sudden, you shaking hands and kissing babies. You suspect. Number 6, we need to demand America start treating blacks like they're innocent until proven guilty. We need to demand that. Because what we're seeing now is that we, and I say we, I'm talking about African American people, we are not being given the benefit of the doubt. I watched, and you've seen it on CNN, what was that? I believe in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the gentleman whose car broke down, Terrence Crutcher. Car broke down. Police showed up on the scene. Now understand, his car broke down. He's in need of assistance, right? Car broke down in the middle of the road. Now you know your car sure enough doesn't put you down if it's in the middle of the road. Police show up and they don't offer assistance. They offer aggravation. I've studied it. I've watched every piece of footage. I've read everything I can on it. Instead of being concerned about his problem, watch this. They saw him as a problem. Oh, Pastor, where you getting that from? I'll tell you where I'm getting it from. I'm getting it from the audio of the helicopter pilot who's watching the scene from the air, and he says these words from the sky, looking down at a man with his hands up. What does he say? He looked like a bad man. He looked like a big bad dude. How you see that from the sky, player? He what? And see, people getting uncomfortable now. Oh, Pastor, he just. I just need to know how you came up with that assessment from the sky. It is the imagery of a big black man. In some people's mind, is scary. But when you don't know somebody, and you take your social cues from ignorant rap videos and stupid black movies that black people make. That's why folk don't like me. We got to stop this foolishness, church, because entertainment is becoming the noose around our neck. Because this world does not have the maturity to differentiate what's on the big screen and what's actually in the streets. Hello, somebody. A lot of folks think if you got locks or you got dreads, they call you a mop head. And they automatically assume that you can't be intelligent, you can't be smart, you probably smoke weed, because everybody with dreads smoke weed, or everybody, they're in some kind of drug life or some kind of, it's a stereotype. And believe it or not, a lot of people buy into it subconsciously. So when people see you, oftentimes they have a certain feel about you just on the way you look. You got some black people like that. They look at white people and think all white people are evil. So they got quiet real quick, didn't they, man? Oh, yeah, they all evil. Blue-eyed devil. You can't trust none of them, Pastor. Use a lie. Use a lie. Because I trust a lot of them. I found a lot of them to be true and faithful and friendly and kind. And I will not reverse prejudice them, because I know what it feels like to be on the short end of a prejudicial treatment based on the color of my skin. But I do understand that if we are going to be held to the law and have to be accountable for our behaviors. I do not believe that law enforcement should be exempt from that same criteria. I do not believe it. I will never change that, because you took an oath, you accepted a paycheck, you said you were going to serve and protect. And I'm looking to see some service, and I'm looking to see some protection, because quite frankly, a lot of us don't feel it or see it. Number 7, we need a clear and concise prison sentence for police who murder innocent people. Just like they got mandatory sentences for drugs, we need mandatory sentences for using lethal force on innocent people. Pastor, why do we need that? Trust me, if we got that in place, and that's hanging in the balance, when they pointing this gun, they gonna think twice, 3 times. Let me get this taser. Let me swap out, because if I'm wrong, it's 10 years, it's 20 years, it's life in prison. The reason why there's no second thought, because there's been no consistent consequences. Come on, somebody. This is what we got to understand. Somebody say 8. Clear and concise rewards. Nobody's talking about this. Clear and concise rewards for law enforcement personnel who serve and protect the lives of citizens. What are you saying, Pastor? We need a reward system. A reward system says, okay, yes, we're going to hold your feet to the fire if you continue to kill people who are innocent. But we have a reward system in place if you save lives. We got a reward system in place if you stop other police from killing innocent people. Oh, we got a reward for you. You about to be a sergeant. You about to be a chief. You about to go up to the pen. We're going to take care of you. Why? Because where there are rewards, people respond. Come on, it's the old Pablo experience. They did a scientific experience. They got a dog to do all kind of stuff. Know how? Gave him a reward. Gave him a little treat. You say, oh, Pastor, does that really work? It works on every level. So we have a system that does not reward good. We have a system that's actually rewarding bad, which is why you get what you reward. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Somebody say number 9. This is important. We need economic development. What does that mean? America has got to stop shipping jobs overseas. And we've got to start bringing manufacturing back to our country. We have to. We have to. Now, for a period of time, it's going to be rough. For a period of time, when you understand the economical landscape, things are going to go up. The prices of things are going to go up because we have got unaccustomed to producing things in this country, and labor is cheaper in other countries. But what happens is labor is cheaper in other countries, but you got more unemployed people here in this country, which creates poverty, which creates crime, which causes folks to sell drugs and do things to try to make a living. So you bring the jobs back. We suffer the economical shift that is apparent when you reintroduce manufacturing in America, but over a period of time, we rise because you got more people working. And when people are working, they have a vested stake in the country they're living in. So our folks don't care. Our folks are looting and tearing up stuff. They're like, what I got to lose? That's why black people tear up their own community. Why? Because they don't even feel like they own that community. Everybody asks, why do black people tear up their own community? Because they don't feel any ownership to that community. Somebody better say amen in here. So we need to start bringing the jobs back and stop shipping them overseas, because I'm telling you, when we started doing that, there was a tremendous decline in America. And it hit the African American community stronger than it hit just about anybody else. Somebody say amen. Number 10, the wealthy have to realize that if they don't reinvest to reduce poverty, they are guilty of what I call economical genocide. What are you saying, Pastor? The rich cannot continue to get richer at the expense of the poor getting poorer. I think rich folks have to realize, don't we have enough? Don't we have enough? How many more millions and billions do you really need while other folks don't have food to eat? Hello, somebody. So there has to be a shift. And they have to understand that the haves, here we go, have got to help the have-nots. This year alone in Charlotte, there have been 6 fatal shootings by police officers. And all 6 of them, the officers who shot and killed a person, was exonerated and set free. So what you see in Charlotte is the compound interest of injustice. Makes sense now, don't it? So this makes number 7. This is number 7, and there's already been 6. And there has been no justice in the eyes of the people. I also did some further research because I wanted to know how many people had been fatally shot this year, as of September, by police. That number currently, as of tonight, 7:55 p.m., unless something's changed while we're here, is 707 people. That should make us all say, wow. If you say that doesn't seem like a lot, I should hit you in your head. That's 707 people fatally shot. In other words, they just weren't shot, they died. That's way too many. You know, Pastor liked to play with numbers, so I got my calculator out and did the math on it. That's 78.5 people shot and killed by police each month this year. Might as well round it up to 79. 79 people thus far have been killed each month in America by the police. Less than 1% of those who killed this year have gone to jail for it. I kept my calculator out because I wanted to go a little deeper and came up with that's approximately 3 people a day shot and killed by the police. 3 people every day. And just before I put my calculator up, I punched it one more time. That's every 8 hours, somebody is killed by the police. Somebody, do y'all hear Pastor tonight? Killed. Not arrested, not tasered, killed. And then folks say, well, I'm sure they did something wrong because, you know, in this country, when you're black and you get shot, they bring out your criminal record. I'm not going to be popular tonight, mother. But the only thing I can do to be fair and balanced is I love to do comparative analysis. And I struggle trying to understand how a man with no gun ends up dead, but how a man sets off several bombs, has a shootout with the police, and gets to ride in a gurney to the hospital. I also struggle to understand how a brother can go in a church and kill folks. The police take him alive, and before they lock him up, they take him to Burger King. Okay, it's you explain that to me. It's quiet now. We have a problem. And if we ignore it, we are part of the problem. And we can't take a black side or a white side. We got to take the right side. Because if this was happening to white folks, it'd still be wrong. Hello, somebody. I need white people to come to the table. I need blacks to come to the table. I need Asians to come to the table. And we got to come together and figure out what do we need to do to stop this problem. Because if we don't stop it, it won't continue just to be a black issue. It won't continue just to be a black and brown issue. If we don't get a handle on this, then this cancer in our police forces throughout America, and we have good police forces. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We know we've got good policemen, we got good officers, we've got good departments, but we've got some issues and we got some problems in this country. And if we don't get our hands on it, all of us are going to be in trouble. Give God praise if you've been blessed. I'm done. You don't have any more questions, do you? All right. Were you blessed tonight? Was this worth your time?